Genshin Killer is a term you've probably heard used everywhere if you even play Genshin Impact, to the earlier days of Tower of Fantasy to the more recent Honkai Star Rail and Sunless Zone Zero. When they were first announced, they were all referred to as one word: Genshin Killers. Though Honkai Star Rail ended up being a completely different thing, the other two were more Genshin competitors, if anything, or Genshin-like. Tower Fantasy being directly marketed as one, and I don't think Zenless was trying to compete at all. I mean, they're the same company, they were just in different niches. The point is, people have been constantly throwing around games that will end Genshin forever. Tears of the Kingdom will end Genshin. No, it will be Tower of Fantasy. And now it's the term of Kuro Games' Wuthering Waves. Once again, trying to kill miHoYo's Star Child. Okay, now, I think they're just trying to bank up the success of miHoYo and how they have continued to have success. Literally, I should make another video of how Genshin has literally become unkillable. But maybe for another time. Either way, the point of today is Wuthering Waves. A gacha, open world, action RPG that is literally Genshin Pro Max. I'm gonna elaborate. Okay, so this video is actually a lot more elaborate than my other videos, so I'm gonna go by sections. First off, the most important one, the gacha. Okay, I'm joking a little bit, it should be the combat, but the gacha's easier to explain. I'm assuming everybody here knows how gacha works. If you don't know, it's pretty much gambling. And Wuthering Waves' gacha is actually a lot better than Genshin's, which many people consider to be the standard, even though, well, it could be better. Wuthering Waves is a system that pretty much is identical to Genshin's. 160 Primo Gems is one wish, and you get a 5-star every so polls. The difference being that instead of 90, it's 80, and your weapon this time is guaranteed. You don't need to actually risk as much by getting a weapon you don't want. This is why many people say weapon banners are a scam in Genshin. I mean, you'll have one of the most busted weapons in the game right next to Kokomi's weapon. It is a lot more generous, and the devs have given you a lot more gems than miHoYo. Not only with a 5-star selector, but also a 5-star banner that can lend you to multiple 5-stars. Hell, I got 3 5-stars off of the starter banner. miHoYo just gives you Noelle for some reason, and they expect that to be reward enough, but that's not the point. So yeah, overall, the gacha rates are a lot better. Another thing that's a lot better is the combat. The combat feels a lot more engaging with intro and outro skill. Wuthering Waves' whole thing is intro and outro skills. Basically, you have a gauge. When you fill it up, the next character will do an attack that will damage the opponent, heal you, or buff you. There are multiple, really. For my run, I played generally Culcharo, Mortifi, and Verena, pretty much a standard team. Culcharo, if I were to explain it, is a electric D-Luke, literally elemental burst, electro-enhanced weapons, 3-strike combo, and generally good in the early game. Mortifi is kind of a Xiangling type, at least in terms of damage. He's more akin to Xingqiu with the normal attack follow-ups, and his skill is actually really fun, being able to summon a dragon. And I also used Verena generally, because healer. You kinda need a healer in this game. They're only like 2.5 from what I understand. I don't really know. I played the game until AR 31. Verena generally serves as a healer, you know, her burst heals you, her charge attack heals you. She was pretty good. Did not need 2 of her though. Yep, I praise the gacha system, and look what I got. miHoYo has treated me worse. Now we move on to the world. The world is actually really pretty designed. It's really cool to look at. It actually looks interesting, but I feel like it's a little bit of a down to compare to Genshin's. I mean, Genshin's is huge, And that's generally because Genshin has been, like, what, almost 4 years in development up to this point. We're close to having 5 regions. I don't think it competes, but it looks very pretty and interesting. I see ruins of cities desolated by lava, poisonous area filled with mushrooms. It's a very interesting world, honestly. I enjoyed my time with it, and I think it looks really cool. So, if the world is cool, the combat is better than Genshin, the gacha is 10 times more fair, the devs are a lot more open for rewards, well damn, I guess Genshin's screwed. There is no way they can compete with this. I mean, if they're being this generous, there is absolutely no way. I already uninstalled the game. Okay, you've got to understand something. While the core mechanics of Wuthering Waves are great, and in a world where Genshin doesn't exist, I would definitely keep playing this game, I don't want to. Don't get me wrong, it's not because the game is bad. It is actually great. I definitely recommend you try this if you are sick and tired of Genshin, but there are a few details. One, the story. Listen, the main point of a gacha game is the characters, and the main point you get to see the characters, if you don't get them, is the story. The first character I really liked was Jian. He looked really cool and his combat looked incredible. The thing is, he isn't interesting. He's a general. That's kinda all I got from him. I didn't pay much attention to the story, which I'll get to in a minute, but yeah. I don't know. The characters, I really didn't care about that much because the story is kind of boring. And also, like complaining here, this is a very personal plot peeve. Every single character here uses the same color scheme. They all have a black, white, or both. It's very distracting. Like, what? Do they have a type? Like, you could say, oh, they're all from the same faction. No, at least I don't think so. Jian and Verena are the ones that look the most different, but besides them, they all look pretty samey. Like, I don't know, it's just a personal pet peeve of mine. It looks weird. Like with Genshin, you can tell all the characters have a distinct design. Look at Sethos, look at Bennett, the completely different characters. Look at Mortifi, look at the hat guy. I don't know. They look pretty samey. Another thing I didn't particularly like is the story. Now, Genshin's story isn't that strong, but it has a hook, which is the whole sibling abyss order. And the further you go on, the more hooks it gives you, and the more interesting the writing gets. Genshin is often described as a slow burner. It's not an instant grab. While it has some hooks in the beginning chapters are pretty middle of the road. But Wuthering Waves, okay, listen, I played like the first 2 chapters of the story, I think, while listening to them. After that, I just started skipping. I had already heard that the story was kinda meh and not really good, but God, I was falling asleep. Listen, as much as Genshin's story is, well, you know, the characters have charisma. The characters have interesting personalities that grab you, whether it be Kaya or Lisa, you either fell into one or the other. But here, the characters all just seem like the same person with a little more spice, I don't know. They all seem kinda NPC-like. I will say, the scenarios in the story are really cool. If something I will give Kuro Games, their story scenarios are really cool. They know how to present something. Like the first cutscene with the Crownless, epic. The final cutscene in Chapter 6, quite frankly, breathtaking. I'd say it's better than everything Genshin's ever done in terms of cutscenes. Don't quote me on that though. They may be forgetting some few, but still very epic. Oh, and when we're in the final battle of Chapter 6, and you get a team of trial characters, which are the characters you're fighting with, and the other characters you don't have are fighting beside you as NPCs. That was cool. The whole section of going out to destroy tower, amazing. The final battle of chapter 6, chef's kiss, amazing presentation. But I feel like the story is kinda style over substance. The imagery goes incredibly hard, but there's not really nothing behind it. And another reason I probably am not gonna touch this game. I have 2,000 hours in Genshin. Listen, Genshin has been established in the market for 5 years, and the only real competitor it has had, besides, Tears of the Kingdom, was Tower of Fantasy, and, well, Tower of Fantasy didn't stick. Or at least not that much. And you gotta remember, if you're gonna convince people to roll away from Genshin, you gotta outclass it in every way. That includes story. But I don't think Kuro Games is trying to do that with Wuthering Waves. I think they're trying to offer a similar experience, one different enough to warrant to play this game at the same time as Genshin. I think Wuthering Waves is a game that you should totally check out, honestly. I won't be sticking with the game, but I still got a 5-star weapon and a 5-star character. Just because I wanted them for this video, honestly. If I ever do pick up this game again to do a more long and elaborate review, which I already mentioned, but I am doing a long, elaborate review of a game for the end of this, hopefully the end of this year. Maybe I'll pick it up again, and I'll have this really cool 5-star, which will probably be irrelevant by the time I pick up the game again, if I ever do decide to do a long review. But yeah, this is my opinion on Wuthering Waves, and if you have the time, I definitely recommend you try this game out. It's actually pretty fun. I was Marvin, host of Part-Time Opinions, and goodbye.